The first race of the Triple Crown, the 2023 Kentucky Derby, goes down on Saturday at Churchill Downs. And for the horse racing bettors out there, this year's field is looking quite interesting. So let's break down the big race and the best bets with Sean Zerillo of the Action Network, who joins me now. Sean, how you doing?
Doing great, Dexter. Thank you for having me. This is quite a weekend for me. Major League Baseball, Kentucky Derby, and a UFC card. So handicapping 3 different sports, swapping between them, but one of my favorite times of the year. Absolutely love the first Saturday in May.
You will be a busy, busy man in terms of the handicapping this weekend. So let's just keep it a focus here on the horse racing. This is what we'll do. Sean, on a typical year when it comes to the Kentucky Derby, there are anywhere from 3 to 5 horses that would be labeled as true contenders. What is the field looking like in 2023?
Yeah, I think it's a weaker field relative to previous years, and the speed scores would kind of confirm that. Typically, you see multiple horses coming in with speed scores around 105, 104. This year, only a couple have even touched 100. So it's a slower field than years past, which means I think there's a chance that a horse is going to step up, run a big race, and potentially cash at long shot odds. So my 2 favorite win contenders, a bit lower in the odds board, but definitely not the actual favorite. That'd be the number 14 Angel of Empire and the number 17 Derma Sotogake. I think Angel of Empire are going to run very well into the pace of this race. The pace difficult to figure out just because there's no true speed horses in here. But when there are no true speed horses, tend to see a lot of people send and go for the fronts, which could create a pretty hectic pace. So I want horses who are going to be coming from off the lead, coming from the back. I think Angel of Empire has potentially the best closing kick in the race. And you should definitely keep an eye on the Kentucky Oaks on Friday because Angel of Empire ran on the same day at the same track as Wet Paint. Wet Paint's the favorite of the Kentucky Oaks. If Wet Paint wins the Kentucky Oaks, especially handily, I think that moves up Angel of Empire in terms of my power ranking for the Kentucky Derby on Saturday. I also want to mention Derma Sotogake, though, coming over from the UAE Derby, Japan. 18 horses have come over from the UAE Derby after running in it. None have hit the board in Kentucky, but I think Derma Sotogake is the best of the bunch, clearly the fastest of the bunch, and frankly, of those other 18 runners, there was only one, Mendelssohn, who I was even willing to include on my tickets. And Mendelssohn didn't break well in the Derby, fell back, was injured, and ultimately never even got to run his race. So this is only the second time of those 18 horses that I'm even interested in using one of them coming over from Japan in the UAE Derby. I think Derma Sotogake is a serious contender. And given the way Japan is trending in the international racing scene, I think it's a matter of time before they win the Kentucky Derby too.
All right, so keep your eyes on those there. Now, Forte, he is the current favorite to win the Kentucky Derby. What makes this horse stand out from the rest of the field? And do you agree with his odds here?
Yeah, highest speed score on dirt. There's a horse named Two Phils who I believe has the highest speed score in the field, but that came over a synthetic track in his last race. And people kind of skeptical whether that number is legitimate, but Forte undefeated, was the 2-year-old champion. Typically, we don't see the 2-year-old champion sort of stick around into the 3-year-old season and become the favorite by the time the Kentucky Derby rolls around. I believe Nyquist, the only horse in the past 25 years or so who's been able to repeat as the 2-year-old champion and then win the Kentucky Derby. But Forte, a horse I'm probably going to go against because by the time post time comes, Mattress Mac very likely will have come in with a very large bet on Forte to hedge his furniture promotion. That's going to drag his odds down, make the odds for all the other horses float up down the board. So I think Forte's price is just going to be too short. If he was 4-1 or 5-1 at post time, I think he'd be a value bet, but I think there's a decent chance he's 2.5-1, 5-2, 2-1 or shorter.
Okay, Sean, so with such a wide open field this year, as you said, are there any long shot horses that you believe could surprise and win the race at high odds?
Yeah, maybe a little bit biased here because my all-time favorite horse is Gun Runner, trained by Steve Asmussen, but the number 11 Disarm. Son of Gun Runner, trained by Steve Asmussen. I think is going to potentially run a career best race on Saturday, coming off of a career best effort in Lexington, continuing to train extremely well in the mornings, leading up to the Derby at Churchill Downs. I would say Angel of Empire and Disarm have been the 2 stars of the workout mornings at Churchill Downs in the week leading up to the Derby. So Disarm, I think he can hit the exotics. I think he even has a chance to win at 30-1. He's been talked up quite a bit this week. I don't think we get 30-1 by post time, but I do think given the size of the field, 20 or 25-1 is a pretty easy ask. I bet Mandaloot a couple years ago at 25-1. He was the best horse in training in the week leading up to the Derby. He was the reason I bet him at 25-1 going into that Derby. And he is now, in hindsight, the winner of that Derby because Medina Spirit has been disqualified for steroid use. So I was on the right horse that day. I like the workout reports that we get leading up to the Derby. There's a lot of clocker information and a lot of information about how these horses are doing. So happy to bet Disarm off of the fact that he's running so well in the mornings, and I think he's sitting on a big race.
All right, look at this arm there. And finally, I got to ask you this, Sean. What are some of the best bets to make for this year's Kentucky Derby? And do you have any tips for bettors who are looking to cash in on the big race?
Yeah, we've seen a number of horses scratch, so I'm actually going to have to dive deeper into the field to see how much I want to cut my exotics. Typically, when I'm looking to build out a trifecta or a superfecta, I want to cut at least half the field from even consideration. So I want to get rid of 10 of the horses. When I'm building an exacta, I want to get it down to about 5 horses and then ultimately pick 3. So I gave out my 2 favorite win contenders, the number 14 Angel of Empire, the number 17 Derma Setagaki. I'm going to pair them with the number 11 Disarm in an exacta box. Hopefully Disarm can run them in second. We get one of the other 2 in first and get a huge payout without the favorite Forte in there. If I'm expanding further out to a trifecta box, the 2 horses I would probably consider including, both win contenders for me. Obviously Forte, just don't want to get completely beat by him and expect him to run a decent race because he does it every time. But I think somebody can outrun him on Saturday. One of those potential contenders is the number 3 Two Fills. I believe I mentioned he has the fastest speed score of any of these horses coming into the race. People are just doubting him because it came over a synthetic track, but he's looked fine in the mornings leading up. It's possible that he just took a big jump up that day and he's going to carry it over to Churchill Downs. So Two Fills would not overlook him coming off of a synthetic track. But as I said, the 9, the 14, the 17, and then the 3 and the 15, those would be the 5 horses I would probably consider for a trifecta box. We're going to narrow it down to the 9, the 14, and the 17 for an exacta.
Sean Zerillo of the Action Network doing his homework on a busy weekend of handicapping. Got the Kentucky Derby, UFC, also baseball. Does such a great job. I know you're excited about the race, Sean. Post time for that one, 5:57 p.m. on Saturday. Should be a good one there at Churchill Downs. Check out Sean's work on the Action Network. Sean, thank you for this. I know it'll be busy. Belmont Stakes in about 6 weeks, and we'll definitely try to talk to you then as well. Thank you, man.
I appreciate you having me. I should clarify, I did mention the number 9. It is the number 11 Disarm. 9 was scratched from the race. So just want to clarify for those trifectas and exactas, it is the 11, the 14, and the 17, not the 9.
There you go. Got to have the exact information so you can get paid. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it, man.
Exact information for the exacta. I appreciate you, Dexter.
There you go.